Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. We are just awaiting a live view from the NASA Stennis Flight Center, where they are getting ready to conduct the first in a new series of testing of the new RS-25 engines on the Fred Hayes test stand at the Stennis Space Center. This test will be the first in this new series, and this series will be the final round of certification ahead of production of these new RS-25 set to begin being used with Artemis 4 or 5 and on into the future. Today's test is currently targeting 1:48 Central Time, or about 8 minutes from now, so we're just waiting for that live coverage to begin or an update from NASA Stennis. Today's test is planned to last 550 seconds with a maximum 111% power level. Once we have those live views, we will bring those in. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad here at TLP. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're going to bring you full live coverage of all of these tests of this final round of the new RS-25 engine testing as they get ready to enter production for the future of the Artemis program with the Space Launch System, or SLS. The first three SLSs will launch with shuttle's old engines, but after that, we need new ones, and that's what we're seeing tested here today. It's the beginning of this new final round. We saw some of these tests earlier this year and last year, and we brought those to you live, and they all really went really well, normally running the full length duration, but give you some really great understanding of the full power of the RS-25 engine, and we're excited to have those here with you. If you guys have questions, you can let us know in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability throughout today's stream. We're just waiting for that live feed from NASA Stennis Space Center. They should get that up and running in the next couple of minutes. Arend is asking, is this a completely new engine? So because we haven't produced RS-25s in it's probably been 20 years. Yes, these are brand new engines. So this is a upgraded version. They're built on the history and the success of the RS-25 that was on shuttle, but they are considered new. I believe they were being classified originally as the RS-25E engine, and that was going to be for this new version of the SLS. They're a bit more powerful than the original RS-25. The original RS-25s were reusable. Ultimately, these ones are not going to be used for reusability because SLS isn't reusable, but they are technically, because the factory was shut down for the original RS-25s, a completely new engine. And that's why we've had to see them go through, I believe this is at least the third round of testing. Last time we saw 12 tests conducted in that series, so we're expecting somewhere around that for this final round of certification ahead of the final production going into actual production for these new engines. Lots of people just joining us in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. We got Nano from Frankfurt, Germany. We got Jason in England. We got Daniels on planet Earth. We've got Dova, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, from the UK. We got Jimbo in Arkansas. Astronauts in Berlin. We got Peter's UK as well. Glad to have you all joining us here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we await NASA to begin testing of a singular RS-25 engine on the Fred Hayes stand at the NASA Stennis Space Center. This is, as I said, the first of the final series of verifications. Today's engine will be tested for 550 seconds, firing up to 111% power level. This is engine 0525 that they'll be testing here today. And they were targeting 1:48 p.m. Central Time, which is 4 minutes from now. And based on previous broadcasts, they should go live about the 3-minute mark. So we're just waiting for that live feed to begin. And once we have it, we will, of course, patch that in and listen in to the live sights and sounds from Stennis. Ben, so have all the old shuttle engines gone through this test? Yes, they were when it was first produced. They have tested the shuttle engines as well more recently to be used after their retirement to bring them back online, but these tests are to prove that they can actually produce the engine properly, so testing the manufacturing and the effectiveness of the actual engine. Montana, watching from work at KSC. Great to see you, Montana. Thanks for your work out there. I'm sure you all are excited to get you the core stage for Artemis 2 sent over in the near future. SRBs are already there. It's Artemis 2 is getting pretty real now. If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We're just waiting for a update or live view from Stennis Space Center for today's test of the RS-25 engine 0525. We've had no updates from them for a little bit of time here, and we're expecting them to begin their test in the next 3 minutes. So this might be a very short turnaround of getting a live view and actually being able to see today's test. Today's test is expected to last 550 seconds. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. We'll work on answering those live. Catching up on the chat here. Dehova, how come engines are able to run at more than 100%? Right? You wouldn't think that makes sense when you think, 100% max capacity. They are able to push engines over. That's when you're pushing them into kind of extra force on it. They test to 100%. Shuttle operated at over 100%. SLS has to, if I remember correctly. At least the first one had to operate. It was like 104 or 107% capacity. So it's actually even in the design of these engines that they need to run at a higher capacity for it. It just means the amount of fuel and everything they're running through it puts out more thrust than kind of what the base normal would be for that engine. But that's why they test them like today's test up to 111%, is they know where they are able to run and be stable for those tests. Now the test is set to begin here in the next minute based on the last update we had from Stennis, but we've yet to have a live view appear. So based on that, I have a feeling they might have delayed, but we will await a couple of more minutes. They do have a window for today's test between 12:30 and 2:30 Central. So they would have another about 40 minutes. They'd be able to run today's test should they need to delay for any reason. But we've yet to have any sort of update from them. The last update was an hour ago, saying targeting 1:48 Central Time. Does NASA plan to build a reusable rocket now that they have technology is there? From Jerry. Thanks for sending that in, Jerry. Great question. No. I personally believe, this is not an official thing from NASA, I personally believe that SLS will be NASA's last rocket. And that's probably a good thing. We live in a new era of commercial rocketry that SpaceX and Blue Origin and Rocket Lab and all these other companies that are in development that are private are able to produce rockets faster, cheaper, and that are more effective, generally speaking. Obviously, Starship's the only thing that's really a competitor to SLS right now. But in other rockets, it doesn't make sense. NASA is so amazing at science and technology and things like that that I think it would make more sense that they focus on that and running their space program with their astronauts than actually the rockets. Because why should we, SLS is going to fly, if we're lucky, once every year, 18 months, 2 years. Why not use a vehicle that already exists? Once Starship's able to fly crews, that you can just go use one, just like we see with Crew Dragon. They just have to lease it, and SpaceX is the one that has to do the testing, the maintenance, the refurbishment, and all of that. So it's actually cost saving to NASA to not have to build their own rocket. SLS is expensive, very expensive. One SLS has the whole SLS program so far, last we had heard, had spent like $28 billion. Elon says they've spent about $4 billion on the entire Starship program. And we've already had an integrated first flight test, and we're almost ready for a second. That's a very big cost difference, and that comes out of taxpayers' dollars versus private dollars. So I think generally taxpayers would even be happier with NASA using other rockets. But those rockets have to be able to do what NASA wants as well. They can't limit NASA. So that's where there's, questions on what makes the most sense. But I do not believe we will see NASA build another rocket after SLS. If we do, we're talking 10 to 15 years from now. And at that point, it just doesn't make sense. SLS, if you think about it, really stems back from even in the Constellation program with Ares 1, and I think it was Delta, they were calling Delta Heavy. No, not Delta Heavy. There was another one that was kind of like a SLS earlier version, but they've been working on ideas for SLS for 15, 20 years. It's not a new design, a new vehicle. It's just finally coming to fruition. So that's the other thing. SpaceX can go blow up a whole bunch of rockets, and it doesn't cause issues other than to their stock and their funding. NASA couldn't do that. If NASA blew up an SLS just to learn at what point it would blow up, taxpayers would be upset because it costs $4 billion for one rocket. So that's where you also run into some issues there. But great question. Thanks for sending that in. I know that went on a little bit of a tangent. If you're just joining us, welcome here. We are awaiting a live view from Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, where NASA was set to conduct a test of today's RS-25 0525 engine today. They were targeting 1:48 p.m. Central Time, which that time has now come and gone. So they are either testing it and forgot to hit go live on the live stream, which is possible, or they have had a delay to it and have just not updated social media. So we are going to keep a close eye on this as we await for an update. We'll give it a few more minutes, and then ultimately, if we don't hear anything, we'll probably call it a wraps. But you guys can keep sending in questions in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live here at TLP. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we bring you full live coverage of tests, launches, dockings, undockings, and return to Earth. We're also trying to get TLP News up, our space news team. We are excited to be looking to bringing on a few new volunteer journalists onto our team. So if you're interested in doing that or interested in being a moderator, fill in an application over at tlpnetwork.com. We're going to be reaching out to people this week to bring on some new moderators and some writers. So if you love space and have something you're passionate about that you want to help write stories about to share with more people, maybe you really want to just focus on Rocket Lab or SLS. Of course, everyone loves SpaceX, or maybe you want to write about everything. Definitely consider applying or volunteering, because ultimately space is better together, and we need help to be able to cover everything from around the world, because there is a lot going on, and it's a lot for me to do solo, and we've got a small team of people, and we're hoping to grow that and invite some more of you on board. It's also a great opportunity to volunteer and get to be even more part of the space industry, and sometimes get to know things before other people. It's really interesting. Like the Blue Origin lander, we may or may not have known what it looked like before the announcement. So we're excited to bring some of you onto the TLP crew. Into Fox is asking, could Falcon 9 reach the moon, or is that in the realm of just outside Falcon 9 but inside Falcon Heavy? So Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy can launch stuff to the moon, but it itself doesn't reach it. The first stage never leaves Earth. The second stage very rarely leaves Earth. Falcon Heavy could launch Crew Dragon to the moon. Definitely. They've said it could. The issue is Dragon's not classified or certified for human flight to the moon because of the different radiations and stuff. So definitely it can do it. It has sent stuff to the moon, but it is not its primary objective. Thanks for sending that in. Rock3T or Rocket is asking, do you think SpaceX will send a Starship to Mars within this decade? Yes. Elon spoke at the IAF conference in Baku, known as the IAC, the International Astronomical Congress, was in Baku, Azerbaijan last week. We're excited to be attending next year's, hopefully in Milan. But he spoke via a live call, saying that their hope is integrated flight test 2 by end of year, launching Starlinks by end of next year, if not mid next year, and they're hoping, it sounded like hoping to launch to Mars in the next, I think it was 4 or 5 years. So obviously that has to line up with the Mars transfer windows, which at this time, the next window would be 26, I believe, and then 28 roughly. It's about every 26 months. So I'd have to check on that. But ultimately, it all depends on when we can get that excuse me, we're just going to patch in the live feed here. We finally have it. But ultimately depends on that launch window, on when they'd be able to test. And you're now looking at a live view from NASA Stennis Space Center and the Fred Hayes test stand, where NASA is preparing to test their brand new RS-25 engine. This is the next generation engine that will be used to used to launch the Artemis program, starting with Artemis 4. Just want to make sure we got the audio turned on so we can hear the sights and sounds of the engine. And they have some beautiful copyrighted music, so we'll wait till that ends when they begin the test to actually hear the thrust of that RS-25 engine. Today's test is set to run for 550 seconds, and it will be burning up to 111% capacity for that test. Indefox, any suggestions for a decent beginner telescope? Great question. We're actually working on kind of like a holiday list that we can put out as we get closer to the holidays, so keep a close eye on that. Arend asking any update on Second Starship. We're still waiting on the FAA and the Fish and Wildlife. So at this point, test is definitely into November. I would say likely December. And then the question is, how are they going to handle the holiday season? So that's something we're going to have to watch about. Jessica, did NASA forget about us? It seems like almost. They were targeting 148 Central. It's now currently 157 Central. So we're going to have to see what the new target is. But they are preparing for it. Normally they run this like 2 to 3 minute intro as they prepare for a test. But hopefully we'll get that clean live helicopter view. Today's test, as we said, is going to burn for 550 seconds or 9 minutes, 10 seconds, maxing out at 111% of the thrust capacity of the RS-25. This is testing the same amount required for an Artemis space launch system launch. That's why they test it for this full duration, is to make sure that it would actually be able to last the length that the core stage has to last during a launch. And having been there for Artemis 1, I can tell you, 1, they're incredible engines. Of course, the SRBs beat them, but they're incredible engines. And 2, that's a very long time to burn an engine for flight. So very interesting to see there. Looks like they're going to play an interview here while we wait for the test to begin. If that doesn't have some music, we will listen into that as we await today's test. And they're still playing some beautiful copyrighted music, so we're going to wait. Picture there from onboard Space Shuttle Discovery during STS's 26th mission back in 1988. Crazy that it's been well over a decade now since the last shuttle mission. They were an incredible vehicle. Dova, when is Artemis 3 scheduled to launch? They are currently targeting 2025, 26, but it is possible due to budgets and spacesuits and a few other things they might not be ready, and Artemis 3 might actually become Artemis, will change and not actually become the lunar landing. Let's listen in.
And I'm the lead mechanical test operations engineer on the Fred Hayes test stand at NASA Stennis Space Center. I lead a team of 4 test engineers in testing the RS-25 engines for the Artemis program. In high school, I was very interested in math and science, and I had a couple teachers who pointed out that I was pretty good at math, and they suggested I go to engineering school. So I chose that path. But as a girl, my grandfather was involved in the shuttle program, and for our summer vacations, we would visit them in Kennedy, at Kennedy Space Center. And one time I saw a shuttle launch from their backyard, and I can remember the windows rattling, and I'd never seen anything like that. And at the time, I never dreamed that I'd be a part of the space program. It really was never a goal of mine. But coming out of school, I came back home and started looking for a job, and I got a job here at Stennis Space Center with Rocketdyne, and it just took off from there. When I first started out at Stennis, I was in the maintenance group for the Navy. I didn't really have my sights set on conducting tests. I think I even thought it might have been out of my league. But there was a job opening as a test engineer with Rocketdyne, and I remember I called up a lady I knew that worked for Rocketdyne just to get an idea of what the job was like and if it's something that I would like to do. And she said, "Nyla, I just have to say this is the best job that anyone could ever have. It's the most exciting, challenging job out here at Stennis Space Center." And so it was a little scary, thinking of what I would be doing, but I'm so glad it worked out, and that I eventually became a test conductor. We are in the Test Control Center right now, and this is where all the fun happens. As test conductor for the day, you are in control of all operations for the day. So you have to be knowledgeable about all systems, the nitrogen systems, helium systems, there's hydraulic systems. You are in control of all of that, and you direct the test team. So it's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot going on. We work to check sheets, procedures, so that helps keep us on task for the day. But the test conductor has to be ready to respond to any off-nominal things that can happen. It's a lot of work and a lot of people that come together to get the test off. On a test day, the atmosphere in the control center is much like what the atmosphere would be like in a launch control center. It starts out fairly calm, people getting set up and getting into their operations, but as the test day goes on, the tension becomes more and more and continues to increase up until auto sequence start. A typical RS-25 test runs for 500 seconds, and at NASA we believe in testing like you fly. So the reason we run for 500 seconds is because that's how long it takes the RS-25 engines to power the rocket into space. As we get closer to the test, here in the control center, everyone is focusing on their operation for the day, and you can feel the excitement in the room. The anticipation is building, and when I'm sitting here, I know that I'm usually really nervous, but also excited, and I can feel my heart just beating out of my chest. Once we hit auto sequence start and start the test, there are several things that we look at. We monitor camera views to make sure there's nothing wrong in camera views. We are watching our tank levels, our propellant tank levels, the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, to make sure that we are on schedule for consumption. We are also looking at the engine profile and making sure that all of our valves and systems are performing as expected for the test profile for that particular test. We have to be ready to respond if we see a fire or any issues that happen during the test. Today we're testing the RS-25 engines to certify them for use on the Space Launch System and Artemis mission that will be flying to the moon. So when you're watching the test, you'll see what looks like a huge cloud of smoke coming out of the test stand, but it's not actually smoke. What that is water vapor. Our test stand has a deflector that pours out thousands of gallons of water per minute, and when the hot exhaust hits the deflector water, it creates the steam, the water vapor. Being a test conductor can be really stressful, and it's really hard work, but it also can be fun. I enjoy being part of the team and working towards getting ready for the test. That's one of my favorite parts, and the most exciting part is being able to sit here during tests, and after you hit auto sequence start, you can kind of take a deep breath when you see the engine light up. And sure, there's a lot to look at after that, but to me that is the most enjoyable part. You can kind of sit back and look and watch the engine fire. One of the coolest things to me about what we do is actually the test stand. You think about the test stand and what it is. It has to be strong enough to hold the rocket down. The rocket is meant to launch heavy, super heavy, items, rocket into space, but the test stand has to hold that down, has to hold the rocket down so we can perform a good test. I just think that's really amazing how these test stands were built and what they were made to do. If you're a young person out there today and you think that you'd like to become a test engineer, I would say focus on math and science and work hard. It can be hard sometimes, so don't give up, and if you stay at it, you can do it.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of the Fred Hayes test stand at the NASA Stennis Space Center, where they are getting ready to test an RS-25 engine. There is a live view of the engine as they are in final preparations for today's flight. Now, we do not have a countdown for this, so we are imminently awaiting ignition of that RS-25E engine, the next generation RS-25 engine to be used for Artemis 4 and beyond, getting ready to take humanity back to the moon and then on to Mars. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. This is a live view from the Fred Hayes test stand. You can see the water deluge system activated below, so they are imminently preparing to test. Test is imminent. Today's test set to burn 550 seconds, 9 minutes 10 seconds, which is the required amount for a SLS launch. Today's test will throttle up to 111% efficiency on the singular engine. Unsure if we'll see gimbaling happening today. This is the first of a series of final certification tests to certify production ahead of mass production of these new engines. 4 RS-25s are required for each SLS, or Space Launch System vehicle. First 3 SLSs will use old RS-25s from the shuttle program. Following that, they will all use new ones. Again, we are waiting. I will say headphone warning in case they do have audio on. It might be loud at ignition. We can see in the bottom center of your screen that water deluge system is activated below. So we are awaiting ignition of the RS-25. If you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability. We do have a stopwatch ready to begin at ignition to give you a rough idea of how far into the test we are. Test expected to last 9 minutes, 10 seconds, or 550 seconds. Looking at a side view from outside the Fred Hayes test stand at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. Awaiting ignition of the RS-25 engine. Just like when we see testing out of Starbase, we do not have a countdown for this test, so we are awaiting any update. They were originally targeting 1:48 Central Time, now 2:11 Central Time. Today's test window, I do believe, closes at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, or 19 minutes from now. We are waiting imminent ignition of the RS-25 engine on the Fred Hayes test stand. With the window closing at 2:30, they do have about 10 minutes left that they can ignite today's engine without extending that test window. Marcin, how old are the reused RS-25s? They flew on all the shuttles, so you're talking the 80s. Each SLS engine has been identified on which one it is, so you can actually look at the flight history of each engine. But they're from all the shuttle engines, and unfortunately, we only have 3 of the 5 shuttles that remain. So that's we're a little bit more limited on the RS-25s that we had left. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're waiting ignition of the next generation of RS-25 engine, preparing for the first in a final series of tests to verify certification. And Tubby, yeah, 100% isn't good enough. They're targeting 111% thrust here today. If you guys have questions, send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We are awaiting ignition or an update, one or the other. See if we have any updates from them via social media. Nothing as of yet, but we do have confirmation today's test window was from 12:30 to 2:30, which means there is 17 minutes left in today's test window. Which does mean they only have about 8 minutes left that they can ignite the engine should they have to ignite prior to the ending of that window. The last series of tests we saw run on these engines, there was 12 tests over a matter of a few months. And we, of course, will work to bring you live coverage of all of this round of testing as they work to certify this new next-generation engine. Marcin, will Artemis 3 have its own RS-25 hot fire? So they did the green run hot fire tests you might be familiar with from Artemis 1, where they actually put the core stage through a series of testing. They are not doing that for Artemis 2 or beyond. They are testing the engines individually and then attaching them to the core stage and not testing again. So unfortunately, we will not be seeing those green run hot fires. Personally, I think that's a mistake. They did find some things during the green run hot fire with the original Artemis 1 that they probably wouldn't have seen till flight. So it would have been, I think it's still a new vehicle. We've only ever built one. Probably smart to test some more, but they have decided they do not need that green run hot fire for Artemis 2. Artemis 2 has all 4 of its engines attached and is preparing to ship to Kennedy Space Center. The 10 segments for the SRB, have already shipped from Utah and arrived at NASA Kennedy Space Center, I think it was early last week or the week before. 15 minutes left in today's test window. It's a 9-minute test, meaning they've got about 6 minutes left for ignition. Just like good old testing, we do not have a countdown for today's test. We do have the live audio from here playing, so if we heard anything on the net, we would hear so. Again, just to reiterate, headphone warning, if this does ignite, it can be quite loud if they have the stand audio on. We'll work to throttle the audio to the best of our ability, but just fair warning. See, it does still look like they have that water deluge active down below the test stand there. So, a good sign they are still proceeding to the test. 14 minutes left into today's window. If you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those. Jessica, what would be the reason for a test window? Could be a series of things, but they do need to obviously clear the stand, safe the area, as well as they do need to sometimes give audio notices to areas in the surrounding area, things like that, just to make sure that there's no concerns. Mars 2028, are you planning on going and seeing the 2024 solar eclipse? Yes, we got to see about 54%. Oh, we can see they are now retracting away one of the 2 access floors, revealing more of the RS-25 engine. I think this is a great sign that we are going for a test here today. We'll watch to see that second floor retract away. I don't think we've ever seen them retract the floors away live on the air, and there we have that second floor, and there, for the first time today, is a full view of the RS-25E engine on the Fred Haise stand at NASA Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, preparing for today's test. Earlier I was saying I wasn't sure if they were going to gimbal. That's because that access floor was around it. So now that that is clear, that engine is free to move as required. You can see the bottom of the engine's iced up, which means it is being chilled in preparation for today's test as well. There's 12 minutes left in today's window. It's a 9-minute test. Water deluge is active. So again, this test is imminently being prepared for. So stand by for ignition. We are planning to go try to cover the 2024 solar eclipse. We got to see about 53% of the eclipse a few days ago here at the TLP Canada studio, but are trying to make plans to be down on location on the main path. There's a few other events we're planning for next year, so trying to see if we can fit it in. Marcin, is it a self-imposed window or regulatory? I believe it's self-imposed based on what they filed for and just like put out notifications for. Could they extend it? Most likely. Tyler, will they ever test more than one engine at once? Not anymore. So they did for Artemis 1, when they did the Green Run Hot Fire, they tested all 4 on the actual core stage that flew, but normally they just test a singular engine, just like SpaceX. They test the singular engines at McGregor. If you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of an RS-25 engine 5052, I believe, on the Fred Haise test stand, where NASA is preparing for ignition for a 9-minute, 10-second test. 550 seconds, throttling up to 111% capacity. This test is a first in a new series of testing for final certification of production. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, helps us out. I know it's the YouTuber thing to say, but we do appreciate that support. And make sure you join us over on our TLP Discord. It's where our community hangs out in between launches and tests. I did also want to make note, we are going to be going live later today for kind of a casual hangout Q&A from here at the Canada studio, where we were going to be building the new NASA Lego Perseverance rover and doing a bit of a Q&A. So stay tuned for that stream later tonight. Hope you'll join us for that, where we'll be answering anything and everything basically about TLP, about myself, plans for the future, and answering your space questions. So stay tuned for that. Turi Boeing, could there be a static fire for Artemis 2? No, because the SRBs could ignite, so you don't ignite the RS-25s next to the RS-25s next to the SRBs. Mars already booked a hotel and flight to Buffalo to see the eclipse next year. That's awesome, Mars. Yeah, we've got a few places we're thinking of going, so we're trying to finalize where would be best to go. With current additive manufacturing, do you think they try to recreate the Saturn engines? No, so this isn't an F1 engine. This is an RS-25. It is a bit more powerful than the original RS-25s, but it's designed to be just an RS-25 engine. A great question. Thanks for sending that in. Rakuten, I love how close firing, see the tubes and rattling. Yeah, it's always great to see this type of engine test. Really exposes everything that has to be on that engine. It's always great to see. Dova, will you go to the launch of Artemis 2? Absolutely. Already planning our coverage for that. We'll be live at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida for that. I'll be hosting live on location with some of our team, so we hope to we'll be doing that. We've sort of soft kicked off our countdown to Artemis 2 coverage as we know the crew now, and we're awaiting more information. I think we got a water droplet on the camera. That's okay. Just if you're just joining us, fair warning, we are imminently awaiting ignition of an RS-25 engine. Just a little bit of a headphone warning there. We are unsure if we have pad audio patched in or not. Today's test is supposed to last 9 minutes, 10 seconds. Great questions coming in the chat. Thunder, are you going to be... Oh, yes. Marcine, is there any news about when the moon lander for Artemis 3 will be ready? That all relies on Starship testing. So, no, we do not know anything about that yet. Tyler, will the 2024 solar eclipse go through Vermont? It'll be visible for basically all of North America, but the path of it... I'd have to double check on that. If you Google 2024 eclipse, you'll see the path. It might just nip Vermont. It'd be close to it, but you want to double check that path for sure. Tubby, rockets firing is the best white noise generator, also the most expensive. Right? They really are. This is the most expensive noise generator as well as like rain cloud generator. Tom Peters, thanks for sending in your question. Is that arm underneath the engine going to swing away? It should. I know it normally swings under it when they finish the test, but it may also be part of the ignition system as well. The Gahimo, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, the Martian. Do you think SpaceX will stream IFT2 on YouTube with their new way of streaming only on X? No. I think they'll stream only on X. But we will, of course, stream it here on YouTube. We will always stream on YouTube, even if we expand to other platforms, which we are considering doing. We will always maintain a stream here on X. You're just joining us, welcome. You're looking at a live view of the Fred Hayes test stand at the NASA Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. We're awaiting imminent ignition. I know we've said that for a little bit of time now. Been live for 50 minutes. This test was originally set to begin at 1:48 Central Time. It is now 2:25 Central Time. And their test window supposedly closes at 2:30 Central. So it's a 9-minute test, and we've yet to have more information. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work with less than 9 minutes left in the window for a 9-minute test. But we'll wait and see. We did see those that access floor retract away from the engine within the last 10 minutes. The water deluge is still running under the tower. And you can see that the engine is being chilled as well. So it is definitely ready to test. We'll just be waiting for it. Hellfire, thanks so much. Really appreciate your support and watching. It's really, honestly, I don't say it near enough. Because of you all showing up and watching these streams and liking and sharing and just hanging out and answering questions, I'm getting to live my dream of getting part of the space industry, and I am so appreciative of that. And I'm getting to do this as my career and work with some of the most incredible people around the world. So thank you. You guys make this possible. I know that's the cheesy YouTuber thing to say, but it is true. This would not be possible without you guys watching and being members and buying merch. That all goes into this. I've pretty much yet to take a paycheck from this personally. It's been all invested into equipment and travel and bringing you that best possible coverage. So I appreciate it. We got 3 minutes left in today's test window. They were targeting 1:48 Central. It's now 2:27 Central. The test window was from 12:30 to 2:30 Central Time as of their update 5 hours ago. We haven't had an update in well over about almost 2 hours. Ghost, yes, we're super excited for the ISRO crew capsule test on Saturday, and we'll be bringing you hopefully some live coverage of that as well. Gallinary, everyone's asking about Starship, Artemis, and stuff like that. But I ask, how are you doing today? It's always a good day for rockets, whether they launch or not. I appreciate that. I'm doing good. Running TLP is a lot of work. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. It has its work days, and I'm going to try to do some more behind-the-scenes stuff for our members, so stay tuned for that if you are members. There's a lot of work going into making this all work right and managing people and navigating that fun part of being a network director and CEO, but it's so worth it to get to be part of this. Because as you say, even if a rocket's not flying, it's a good day in space. We're watching this new era. Bryant, I hope I said that right. I'm working on my goals as well. I came back from a career fair with some NASA contractors, and I'm praying I get the position. That is awesome, Brian. We send you our best wishes. We'll be thinking about you, and I hope you get that position. Getting to work with NASA, that is super awesome. John, excellent service you provide on all the space activities. Been a fan since the start. I appreciate that, John. Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, welcome. We're now basically out of the test window, but the water deluge is still running and the engine's still cooling. So we're awaiting imminent ignition of this RS-25 engine for today's flight. Dova, a YouTuber that doesn't take a paycheck and instead invests it into the content, providing the best possible coverage. Can't ask for anything better. I do have some bills and student loans that I'd like to pay off, which would be nice. And a vacation more than once every 17 years would be nice too. But yeah, it is a business, and businesses have costs, and to do things right, that has to come first. So I know many people have been waiting for the update to our app. We're working on it, I promise. We want to make sure when we release it, it's right. So stay tuned for more updates on that. But it does look like that's probably going to get delayed into early next year. But when it comes out, it is going to be amazing. You have no idea. We're super excited. Jacob, how many people work at TLP? Also the ones you cannot hear or see. That is a really good question. I can dive into that more during our Q&A later because we're here for the RS-25. But we've recently had a number of people step away for other opportunities and life paths, and we wish them well and thank them for their time here. So we're a rather small team at this point, which is why we've been saying if you're interested in joining the team, apply. We're excited to grow that team with some more people. It's obviously covering everything around the world. Time zones are fun, so we're also navigating that as we work to cover all of Europe, as well as India now, as they really ramp up testing and flight cadence. So right now, if we include all of the rocket chasers, I want to say 8, but most of those people are in ways that like they don't have something to do every day. Like most of those are rocket chasers in Florida, and we have a couple in Virginia. We're probably closer to 10 actually. But like we have 2 rocket chasers that are on our team in Virginia, so they're ready on standby anytime we need them at Wallops. But there isn't a lot of stuff at Wallops right now. So things like that. There's a lot at Kennedy, but there's not a lot of on-property stuff at Kennedy. I do want to point out, it does look like the water deluge below the tower has stopped. I'm not sure when we saw that stop. I think it just did. But it definitely looks like that water has pulled back, or at least been stopped under the tower. So we'll await for an update on if they're continuing today's test. But today's test window was until 2:30 Central, which was 2 minutes ago. So it is possible that we're running out of time for today's test, but we will keep an eye out. We've had no updates from them on this. But yeah, come back later when I'm building the Perseverance lander, and we can talk a little bit more about that. We might do some behind-the-scenes stuff during that, and we're working on some more behind-the-scenes stuff, answering some of those questions a little deeper in upcoming member streams. So we're going to be starting up a couple times a month, trying to do a members Q&A, Kerbal Hangout type of thing. So stay tuned for that as well. Rakuten saying test was canceled. We don't have an official statement on that just yet, but based on the fact that they turned off the water deluge, I would lean to say that is accurate. But they still are chilling the engine, and those floors are still retracted. So stand by as we wait an update from NASA Stennis Space Center. Live view, you're looking at on board the Fred Hayes test stand of an RS-25 engine. Frankie Dog, I could carry the equipment around but don't know how to use it. Honestly, that is a huge help. Believe it or not, when we're live on location and I'm hosting and we have our camera people or producer running cameras and stuff, honestly, sometimes just having a couple extra hands can be a huge help. So stay tuned for some more opportunities there. Brian, the RS-25s are some of my favorite engines. I heard they are considered the Ferrari of rocket engines. That's awesome. They are a cool engine. I do like the look of them too. The Kihimo, I hope I'm saying that right. The Martian, you're going to stream the Starlink mission tonight. That's the plan. We're waiting for updates on that. I do have one appointment this afternoon. So as long as I can get out of that, I'll be able to broadcast that. We are currently back down to just me doing live broadcasting. Unfortunately, the second person that could do those has stepped away. But I'm 95% go to be able to cover that test or that flight, excuse me. So stay tuned for that later this afternoon. If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We're awaiting an update from Stennis Space Center for today's RS-25 test. The window did run till 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Current time 2:35 Central. Jonah is saying test delayed to 3:30 Central. Where are you seeing that, Jonah? I'm not seeing that via any of the systems. If you can let us know in the chat, that would be appreciated where you're seeing that. It's on Facebook? Okay, did they do an update on Facebook but not on their Twitter? Oh, okay. Well, there we go. It's updated on YouTube now. Okay. Well, they are going to begin at 3:30, which is just under an hour from now. So we're going to take a break, and we will be back later. Well, like that, they're wrapping up their testing. So we're going to take a break then, and we will be back closer to 3:30 Central Time, just under an hour from now for that test. And we'll be monitoring also the countdown to the launch of Starlink. Make sure you join us over on the TLP Discord. But for now, from our TLP Canada studio, I'll see you later today, and we'll see you next time because space is better together. Bye-bye.